that's it. Releasing the birthday, Floral Wallpaper in the corridors of my mind. Available on YouTube. Anything else?
Yeah, just YouTube for the moment. I tried for Spotify, but found out very soon that copyright law is serious and it's not to be meddled with. So Spotify was a no-go, as would Apple Music and all them. But I'm going to try for Bandcamp and obviously SoundCloud as well, I think.
Yeah, SoundCloud's a good one for sure. Sick, man. Well, talk me through the album name. I know you make mentions of in corridors. I walk the many corridors, each splitting into more and more. I'm really interested in the album name.
Yeah, so the album name it came from, it was funny, I was actually writing Lost Bird, and as I normally do, I start just kind of freestyling or just doing whatever, the beat kind of makes me think of, and I end up kind of scrapping the first 6 lines that I write because they're not entirely relevant. So the 6th line on the song was, what is it? I'm so far away from the last place I felt at home at. But one of the lines before that was actually, life's so easy when you're blind, floral wallpaper in the corridors of my mind. So that was one of the lines that, that was originally for Lost Bird that obviously didn't end up making sense for that song. The way I interpret it is kind of like it's a very cerebral album. It's very about the mind, the idea of retreating to your mind in times of, when you're discontent with your environment, with your circumstances, and just kind of finding solace in your mind and understanding that, your cerebral is really the master of all of your happiness, and you don't need to let negativity penetrate that if you don't want to.
So that's the floral wallpaper.
Yeah, that's the floral wallpaper, is the positive thoughts, as you can kind of see on the album cover as well. In the corridors of my mind, I just like the idea that you can actually really visualize my mind as a 3-dimensional space, because obviously us humans, we're 3-dimensional creatures. So I'm actually kind of inviting you into this 3-dimensional space. The idea of walking through the corridors is really walking through my mind.
And are we 3 or 4D?
What would the 4th dimension be? Time?
I don't even know. I don't know that stuff well enough, to be honest. Fact check on that, though.
Yeah. Well, maybe we are. I don't know. This is why I'm a rapper, not a scientist, to be honest. But
likewise, mate.
Yeah. But no, I don't know. I think I'm just attracted to the idea of taking these very abstract thoughts and presenting it in a really palatable kind of physical way that we can actually, understand. Like the idea that I'm walking you through the corridors of my mind. Like that's really what any rap album is doing. Anything like biographical, you're taking them by the hand and you're walking them through your identity and what it means to be you. So that's kind of what I'm doing. But yeah, I just wanted to be really, almost a bit, just really upfront with the fact that, this is you coming into my mind. And as I say, on All Roads Lead to Rome, seeing what you find.
Yeah, that really shone through as well. And we'll obviously get to that in a bit. But the album cover as well, I feel like you kind of have already described the album cover in a way. It really depicts, at least from where I'm sitting, it depicts what the name is.
Yeah, 100%. I didn't want to be too overt with it. I actually went through, I think, 24, I could even put them on screen, 24 different drafts of album covers. And in the end, it was just about distilling it to its most simple idea. I was really influenced by, do you know the Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon cover?
I don't. I
just
should.
You would have seen it. It's 3 rainbow lines going into the triangle and then shooting back out. Yeah, you've seen it on. I'm sure you would have seen it on T-shirts.
Yeah.
But there's a reason why that came out in the early 70s and has stood the test of time for so long. Is because it's so simple. It's basically a symbol. It's not a graphic. It's not a picture. It is a symbol that represents so much more. And so for me, I wanted to be like, how can I represent mind in the most basic way possible? Well, let's just do space. How can I represent corridors in the most simple way possible? Let's do squares within squares within squares. How can I represent positive thoughts? Well, that was actually a uni assignment where I had to take a Photoshop, like it was a Photoshop exercise where I had to take a picture of something around the house, which happened to be one of my mum's floral patterns. So that's where you see in the suns. And then you did a little scribble drawing, and then you put that picture in your drawing. So that was a uni assignment that I'd done, and it was just kind of sitting there, and I didn't really think much of it. But it happened to work perfect for the album, because I love, if you zoom into the album cover, it's very tactile. It's very like, the fabric isn't some texture I've downloaded off the computer. Like you can actually see the threads and you know what I mean? It actually looks like real fabric.
Yeah.
And I like it. I like the dimensionality of that. The fact that the suns, these positive thoughts are really touchable. You feel like that's real, and it's coming out of my mind, which is the space. And so you mentioned corridors. Corridors, I made a deliberate choice when I was mastering it, or mixing it rather, to the start of the verse is really high, like in the high pass filter. I wanted it to sound really spacey. And as the verse goes along and shit gets realer and realer and more kind of graphic and almost gloomier and feels more and more hopeless, my voice is actually coming more and more to life, and there's more kind of mid and bassy tones coming into my voice. And then by the end of my verse, the sound of the mix is what you hear for the rest of the album. I'm fully manifested.
My thoughts, dreams, plots and my schemes, written on the walls when I'm lost in this scene. Laying in the wind. Our head pieces empty, don't bleed when we're skinned. Suicide, it's on the same path. The most beautiful things were born in the dark.
Anyway, I say that to say I like the idea that when you're listening to Corridors, you can kind of imagine my voice coming out of that void and to the forefront. And that's basically how the album starts. This is the thoughts coming from my mind into the album.
That's a really interesting production tidbit.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, the argument it could be made that it was also done out of necessity, because there's definitely moments where things didn't work out how I wanted and I had to kind of make adjustments on the fly, and that was part of it, you know what I mean? We'll get to all that kind of stuff later. But yeah, there's a lot of moments on the album where I like to think that if you listen to the song and then you look at the album cover simultaneously, the album cover actually takes on a different meaning. The lyrics of the album and the motifs and the themes and the sounds, they all work to inform and contextualize the album cover differently. And that is why I wanted it to be simple, so that it could have a bit of ambiguity about it. There's not just one meaning that you can just pin it down to, like, this is what it is, you know what I mean? It really could mean whatever you're feeling at that time.
Obviously as well, like, it's a hip-hop album.
Yeah.
But, I mean, talk to me about the genre, because it really is a diverse sound, the whole album as a whole.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's funny. I didn't really know what I was making while I was making it. It wasn't until it was done and I could listen to it top to bottom to where I could actually discover what I'd made. And when I did that, I almost feel like the album, the best way I can describe it is a 60s psychedelic rock opera disguised as a 2020s Aussie hip-hop album.
Yeah.
Do you kind of get what I'm saying?
It's a bit of everything.
Yeah, there is a bit of everything in there, but I was just so inspired by Pink Floyd and the Beatles and Jimi Hendrix and Rolling Stones and Led Zeppelin and Bob Dylan, definitely Bob Dylan, and what those guys were doing back then. And I just wanted the soul of that music, because to me that's really the epitome of music, at least in my taste. And I wanted to bring that, and because I felt like, you know, not to diss the scene that I come from, but I just felt like there was a component missing in Aussie hip hop, whereas, you know, some people were leaning too far street, and some people were leaning too far lyrical, and no one was really embracing the broad spectrum that is music. And I feel like as a musician, you're doing yourself a disservice by not, you know, embracing as many different genres and styles as possible, and in letting them collude in your own, you know what I mean? There's so much out there. Why not embrace it all and find a way to get it all in your music, you know what I mean?
Do you reckon there's a pressure as an Australian hip-hop artist to kind of pigeonhole yourself? Because it's the only way you can really kind of commercialise, really.
Yeah, well, I guess... yeah, that's a funny one, because
to be street, to be Western Sydney, you know what I mean? Like, there's definitely a genre that is kind of, I guess it's lad rap. Is that how you
Yeah,
it?
Eshe rap, lad rap, whatever you want to call it, and it works for them because they're making money, and at the end of the day, that's how they're feeding their families, and fucking good for them.
Yeah, 100%.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But for me, like, I can't come from that place. I have to come from the place of, I fucking love this. Like, when I listen to my album, all the satisfaction I could get out of it is just hearing something that I've always wanted to hear. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I listen to my album and I'm like, I can't believe this exists. Like, this album is everything I ever wanted to hear in an album. And so the trade-off is, because I didn't make it for anyone else, or as you said, to pigeonhole myself in any particular genre, it probably doesn't. Well, it's hard for me to say. I don't assume it has the commercial kind of viability of some other of my contemporaries. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, yeah, we'll see how it goes. But I had to make it for me first. And I hope that kind of shines through when you listen to the album, is that this was made from a place of love.
So talk me through corridors. I mean, I've got highlighted here, I'll walk the many corridors, each splitting into more and more. these pathways are like questions that raise more questions. It seems to be, I mean, the way I'm interpreting it is it's kind of like all these different pathways in life. I mean, talk to me on that.
No, yeah, I think it's less about. It's all about the mind. It all comes back to the mind. It's never as literal as I'm walking. Excuse me, sorry. I'm walking physical pathways. It's more about I'm contemplating different possibilities and kind of gaining new understandings about who I am and my identity. And it's like every time I do, that's a new corridor that opens. That's a new facet of the identity that makes up Austin. You know what I mean? And so it's really me walking through corridors, i.e. me discovering more aspects of my mind. And in doing that, and as I say, it only serves to raise more and more questions. The more I learn about myself, it seems the more questions I have about myself, who I am, what I'm here to do, why, what, again, not to get too hippy dippy or too, woke or whatever, but like, there is that thing where it kind of goes on. I love, because I love the fact that I said raise more questions. I feel like a lot of rappers would end it there, but I wanted to actually say, no, for instance, like, what are these questions? You know what I mean? These pathways are like questions that raise more questions. Okay, what are they? You know what I mean? Don't just say it to sound cool. Like, let's actually hear what's on your mind. So is the exit truly where I'm destined? So the idea of like, once I get through all the corridors and reach the exit, i.e. finish life and get to whatever's after that, you know what I mean? Is that really where I'm destined? Is there an end to the corridors, or what is this? Or is it just this infinite thing?
It's questioning things.
Yeah.
I mean, you got space in your album cover. It's kind of like this rabbit hole in a way. Is that what corridors is as well?
Fucking oath. Yeah, like there is literally no depth. There is no like quantifiable depth to it. It can always go deeper. And like the mind is really like space. Again, not to get too hippy dippy, but just like there is actually no quantifiable depth to where you can go in it, or how deep your thoughts can get. So that's that one. Then, do I exist on a predetermined plan of succession? So I feel like that's a bit more self-explanatory. But yeah, do I exist on? Basically, is the notion of fate real? Is my life already set out for me, or do I have autonomy? Can I make my own decisions? And then probably my favorite one is who's the one that speaks to me in studio sessions. The idea that where do these thoughts come from? What is creation? Like, this album didn't exist without me, but it's has to have been a culmination of all the things I've ever heard and experienced. But like, you know what I mean? It almost feels like there's another element of like, whether you call it some kind of energy force or God or whatever you want to call it, but there's almost like this other element to my creativity that it's like another voice in my head when I'm having my studio sessions that's speaking to me and willing these thoughts into existence that are so kind of far outside the grain of what's been so far.
Yeah. Cigarettes and Setbacks, great song. Seems to be, I mean, I kind of interpret it as stoic. It's carefree. It's kind of like a ballad to tackling things on your own.
Yep, that's well put. I think let's start like aesthetically, because like at the end of the day, the album isn't one big intellectual exercise. Like I wanted it to be a vibe. You know what I mean? I want it, even if you don't speak English, I want you to be able to enjoy my album. You know what I mean? So I wanted to start there. I feel like, and this is really where this song comes from. Is it really doesn't come from I didn't sit down to think, let's make a ballad about being carefree. It was more like, how does this beat make me feel, and how can I give back to this beat? So the beat was very like kind of surfy and very like upbeat and kind of very positive and sunny. And I thought that my Australian accent kind of worked in my favor in this instance, because that surfy sound and sliding in the pocket, think I'm Tony Lockett, you know what I mean? Those kind of references. Yeah, so that's really the place the song was written from. I was actually surprised at how many people took to the lyrics on this song, because it really wasn't, like, I can't stress this enough, I'm not just being humble, like it wasn't, like I made no effort to be lyrical, like whatsoever, you know what I mean? Like it was completely about the cadence, the pocket, the flow, and the vibes. So yeah, what did you kind of take from this song that kind of jumped out to you, or you know, what? Yeah.
Firstly, it was great flow. Like the beat was great, and like the way you added to that was awesome. But I found the lyrics like so interesting, just because given we already have a personal relationship, just no, like it seemed like it was a little bit of a introspective moment on the album, and that was kind of like being a voyeur, if you like, listening to it was really interesting.
Yeah. What lyrics specifically? Kind of, do you have them up?
I certainly do.
Because I'll fill in the spot here, because one interesting thing about the lyrics is the first verse was actually written about a year and a bit before the second verse.
Yeah, okay.
And so it took me actually going to Sydney and being in a completely different place in my life to actually finish the song and fully realize it and actually understand for myself what it's all about. So the first verse was written after I finished, as you know, the film. Not that they'll know what that is, but yeah, 2019.
I do though, yeah.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
So 2019, I basically took a hiatus from rapping, made this film.
Which was great, by the way.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely unreal.
Maybe I'll have to upload it to the Austin Cleary channel.
Yeah.
If ever, yeah, if the copyright would permit, not like there's any songs in that one either. Yeah, so this first verse is really me finishing that and kind of having a bit of a, so Austin, what's next then kind of moment with myself. Like, what are you going to do now? I was going to talk about this later, but I guess we're here now. So this was early 2020, right as COVID was hitting.
Yeah.
And we were kind of unsure about what was going on.
Sure.
And I remember our friend Darcy had sent in a house song that he'd actually made at the start of COVID, and I thought it was really good. And I kind of had this moment where I was like, man, why are my friends who don't even do music making more music than me? You know what I mean? So I was like, fuck this. I'm going to get off my ass and actually start making something.
Yeah.
So I put on my wall 10-day song challenge, and I said, how do I combat all the things stopping me from making music? Well, I'm an overthinker. So what I'm going to do is for 10 days, I'm going to spend exactly an hour picking a beat, writing the first thing that comes to mind, and just after an hour, that's it, you're done. You know what I mean? No overthinking, don't listen to it back, you're done.
Yep.
And so literally day one of the 10-day song challenge was this song. So this song was the first song I wrote in about a year.
Huh.
And I just chucked on that beat, and I must have been listening to a lot of Smino and Earth Gang and Coda and people like that at the time. And I just came out with this like new cadence and new flow that I'd never really done before. Like it was very like, hey, like sliding in a pocket. Like it's very kind of I'm feeling myself kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Which really served the album to keep everything diverse and different and new flows.
I think the way you use your own name as well, it kind of adds to the power of it. Like
Dude, my mum loves that. She's like, why do you refer yourself in the third person? I'm like, I don't know, I heard it in a Lauryn Hill song. She's like, I love that.
Yeah, it's like so personal, but it's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole, where is it? They say stop, I just keep jogging. They say you can't run from problems, but that don't make sense to Austin. I'll get lost and come back stronger. That's all like, when I was going to Sydney, people were saying like, what are you going to do there? Like, what's going to be different about Sydney? I remember even you said that someone had said that about me.
I had heard that, yeah.
Yeah. And I heard it myself. Like, what are you doing in Sydney for? Like, you that's not going to change anything. And it's kind of like, well, A, that's not for you to decide. That's for me to decide.
Mm-hmm.
And B, like, I'm going to get lost and come back stronger. Like, this is not a permanent situation. I'm going to come back. And when I do, I'm going to be better off for it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And, I wrote that before I even really did come back. But yeah, it turned out to be semi-prophetic because everything I said in that verse came true.
I feel like something I really like about it is I feel like the song kind of almost embodies that feeling that hip-hop can give you of this kind of like temporary invincibility or temporary strength, like something you'd work out to in the gym. Like that's why I like sort of grew up loving hip-hop.
Yeah, 100%. And I took so many takes to get this song right because I wanted to give you that feeling, and it doesn't come naturally to me. My natural kind of style would be more of a, let's say, like almost Hades. I feel like that's my natural like delivery. Mm-hmm. So something like this, it's way more like high energy and upbeat. Like it doesn't come naturally. So I took so many takes, had a few drinks, lost my voice a bit. And it took a lot of preparation, but that was kind of what I needed to do for this song to really do it justice. So for you to say that, I really appreciate it because that's absolutely what I was going for. And I wanted to do justice to the feeling that I felt when I wrote it.
Yeah.
Because you got to understand, I'm recording 6 months or more after I write it. So it's hard to kind of get mentally and emotionally back in that place. So yeah, that was that took some doing. But once I got that take and I listened to it back, I just was like, it was just such a full circle moment. I was just like, I'm so happy I just accurately like portrayed that feeling.
Yeah, that's gonna be bloody satisfying. Yeah. Speaking about the way you control your voice as well, it sounds like there's a lot of thought and effort that goes into what your voice is sounding like when you put it to record.
100%. My voice is definitely something, like, I'm not a naturally good sounding rapper. Like, if I showed you all of my rehearsal takes, like, it's horrible. You know what I mean? People say, oh, you've gotten so much better since yada yada days, you know, but really I didn't. Really, I just started working harder, and I didn't give up until I had the perfect take, even if that took 50 takes, 100 takes, 200 takes. Like, there's literally, after Sydney, there was no limit to how hard I was willing to work. Like, and it almost goes back to the depth of the album cover. Like, there was something I learned about myself, that you might think you've done 100 takes and it's getting ridiculous, but there's always more you can do. You might think, oh, I've done 20 versions of my album cover, this is getting ridiculous, but there's always more you can do. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I really attribute the quality of the album, whether other people feel like that's, you know what I mean? I think it's quality, whether other people agree. But yeah, like, I attribute that less to my, you know, creative genius or whatever, and more just to work ethic, you know what I mean? And not stopping until it's right.
Yeah, I mean, let's move forward to Shoreline, track 3 on the album. I felt like that it seemed to contrast almost immediately from Cigarettes and Setbacks, gone from this place of almost like the way that humans sometimes deal with emotions, like, oh, I've got this, to reflecting on the issue in a way and actually feeling through it. Is that at all accurate to how you wrote it?
Okay, well, here's the hard thing, is that when you listen to the album top to bottom, you assume that the sequencing is chronological, i.e. Cigarettes happens first, then this, then this, then...
Yeah.
But really it doesn't. Really, Cigarettes is post-Sydney, which is after Lost Bird. So right off the bat, you got to understand that there is no real... It's not a concept album. It's not a Good Kid, Mad City where every song's a chapter. It really bounces around. I think the truest thing you said is the decision to have that dichotomy of moods, go from Cigarettes to Shorelines. That was definitely conscious, but thematically they're not particularly related. Mm-hmm. I think for me, I was studying the sequencing of my favorite albums, like 2001 by Dr. Dre and some early Eminem albums, and I noticed they always front load the top end of the track list with their best songs. They throw their best punch first. Mm-hmm. So I knew Cigarettes, Shoreline, and Zeitgeist were some of my strongest songs. So that's really all it is. It's just top ending my album with my best songs, almost as if like I can give my album to people and just say, hey, listen to 10 minutes. Just give me 10 minutes, and if you're not hooked, then I can't do anything more for you.
Okay.
So that was pretty much the thought process behind that. And I think Shoreline's probably one of the best songs on the album.
Well, like, what was some of the hardest songs to write? Is Shoreline up there for you?
Nah, not at all. Nah, Shoreline was easy to write. That was all about the hook, really. The verses are not lyrical at all. Again, though, people really took to the lyrics, especially in the second verse. But I don't look at that like this is my, magnum opus or anything. It's just like it serves its purpose. It sounds good on the beat, and that's all it had to be. The hook was a bit more like, I was listening to a lot of Beatles songs at the time, and obviously you probably remember some of that early stuff I was doing. It was very kind of boom bap and like punchline heavy, and it wasn't really trying to be a song rather than just trying to be a rap. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So I was like, I don't know, I said rap was such a dirty word, but more like I wanted to make songs. I don't just want to like spit you a verse. I want to. So yeah, that was in the early 2018 days, and I was listening to the Beatles and Bob Dylan and things like that, and I just wanted to write just a good hook that just kind of complemented the beat well. Like I wanted it to feel like the beat was made for my rap as much as my rap was made for the beat. It's just one cohesive thing. So that's why a lot of people are surprised that the beats I just found from producers online, and I didn't actually work with the producers, but I just wanted it to feel like one cohesive song that you could just play for your grandma and everyone kind of is on board. Everyone gets it. You know what I mean? Yeah,
I mean, obviously the most kind of, the lyric that shines through the most is "Give Me My Mind Back." I mean, that seems to be the theme of the song. I mean, talk to that. Is that literal? Is that,
Honestly, man, I think I just wanted something hard to say over the da-na-na-na-na.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In the bit. I can't stress enough, this song is, lyrically, I didn't, I guess it's just how I felt in relationships. But even that, like, if you know me, like, the person that I'm representing in this song isn't that true who I really am. Like the idea that like, oh, I can't say what I really think. Like, fuck, that's never been my problem.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wouldn't.
Do you come in and out of that throughout the album? Like you're talking from your heart and then you're talking to the beat? Is it?
Yeah, 100%. And that's the only reason why the album could sound so diverse, because I don't approach every song the same way. The main thing was every song I'm trying to take you to a different planet with its own rules and its own ideas and its own vibes and its own color palette. And every song is trying to be as different from each other while still remaining cohesive as possible.
What's your writing process like? Obviously, we've spoken about, you kind of flip it up from song to song, but is there one kind of cohesive formula you follow?
Nah, it's changed over the course of making the album, because obviously it took 4 years to make and I've only been rapping for 7 years. So compared to where I'm at now, the start of the album was really like I was in a completely different place. So yeah, some songs were written just starting off as a freestyle. Josie would come to my house after work, and songs like Shoreline Turning, Hades, AM, they were just like us kind of riffing together. She'd kind of sing to the beat. I'd put words to what she was singing. And then the lyrics would just kind of be freestyles that I would find the flow, like feel my way through the pocket. And then like once I had a flow that I liked, we just use voice memos, like just take, 50 to 100 voice memos, and then I'd kind of write to the flow that I'd freestyled, and then actually plug in words, I think is the way that works for me best. But like I said, the style of writing changed throughout the album. Like obviously something like Corridors is too thematically dense to really do it like that. You can't just plug in words and make it all make sense. That was almost like a poem I wrote without the beat, and then later like found a way to kind of put it into the beat. So yeah,
it certainly listens like that. It is extremely poetic. Like speaking of the voice memos, I feel like we hear some of them on the album. Do we?
Yeah, we do. That was super important to me, because I want to remind people that who the real me is. Like this is obviously album me, this is rap me, but the voice memos peel back the layers and actually just show like I'm just a real dude hanging out, having a laugh. Like putting Dahl after Lost Bird was a massive tactical mood moment for me, because it was just like Lost Bird goes to this really kind of intense, gloomy place, and I wanted to pull us out of it in a way that didn't feel like forced or like I'm trying to make a joke out of Lost Bird, but more just like, hey, like at the end of the day, like I'm a person that just hangs out with his friends and has a laugh, and so those skits almost represented just like the innocence of me, just like the me that isn't trying to be all smart or talented or some big genius, and it's just me just having a good time, I
mean, speaking of having a good time, that certainly comes through on Zeitgeist. Scrub featuring as well. That's got to be a highlight.
That was, that's got to be like probably my favorite moment of being a rapper is actually, imagine that, just like listening to this guy in 2017 and 2018 and then rapping with him about the sort of nights that you would listen to his songs. You know what I mean? Like, again, full circle moment. But yeah, I remember when he sent through that verse, I was at my friend Jake's house, and we're having a few doobskins, yada yada, and when he sent that through, we listened to it on these big like PA speakers that he just bought, and we just listened to it 10 times in a row, and we were just like, how is this real? Like, it was just crazy. And so I mixed it on the spot, because I already kind of had the sound that I wanted. Like, if you notice, Zeitgeist almost sounds like a rock and roll concert. It's very echoey and kind of like big. It sounds like I'm on like a public service announcement kind of speaker. So I kind of, knew what sound I wanted to go for, and we filled in his verse with a few little sound effects and things. But Zeitgeist I was super proud of. That was one of the songs I wrote last year, kind of later. It was one of the last songs I wrote on the album, and I remember it was originally just called Greenleaf, and it was just the first 15 seconds. Life could be so breezy, be me doing 110 on the freeway, key shake, writing lyrics in my rider back. Riding dirty with my rider, down out in my ride, man, take a chance in my right side, as this high climbs, last time is your lifeline, when your life's like mine, so. I'm feeling like the bomb when I hit that bomb. Now I'm feeling kind of woozy, and I think she's gonna do me. And when I dropped out of the beat and brought it back in, I almost had to stop, because I was like, dude, I don't know how to follow that up. I showed my mum. I was like, "This is going to be on a TV commercial one day." I was just like so happy with like how it sounded with the drop and all that. I was like, "Man, this is crazy." I felt grateful just to rap on that beat. I was like, "How do I even like that beat is just incredible, like incredible." I just always wanted to rap on a beat that sounded like that.
In that one
man,
yeah,
man. And that was another thing. Like the sample, I think comes from like a African American kind of like prison yard, early 1900s kind of thing. And so obviously it gets a bit weird me being like a white Australian guy kind of rapping on that. So for me it was just like, oh man, it's got to tell it true and just tell it with soul and just believe in what you're saying, like and just put enough work into it to justify your right to be on that beat. You know what I mean? Like that was just a time when I just felt so honored to be on a beat and I just wanted to give it everything I had. So I really wrote those verses like pop rap verses, almost like Biggie Hypnotized. The way his flow is on that song, like it's just watertight, like it's just a perfect flow. So I really just did it and did it and did it again until I had just this watertight flow that it was just like, yeah. Again, not so much about like being smart or lyrical, but in a way it is lyrical, but it's just lyrics that are tailored around the flow. And just being in pocket. There's some times where I'm rapping to the drums and other times where I'm rapping to the actual sample. Once that one was done, I was just so satisfied with it.
And I feel like, again, when we go to track 6, Hades, it's again that kind of just flipping the album again. It's not going with one vibe for too long. It comes back and it's a bit of a psychedelic song, really. That's what I got from it.
Yes, Hades is mad spacey. That was like kind of based on this night where I was at I just did a session. I was driving home. I remember just looking at the lines on the road, like as I was driving along, and being like, "Oh, it looks like hyperspace," and I was just like, "This is amazing."
Like Star Wars hyperspace.
Yeah, like Star Wars hyperspace. And I remember I was driving my mate Nick home, and we just looked at each other when we pulled up at a red light, and we just like didn't even say anything. We just laughed. We were like, "How good is this?" So that's kind of based on one of those kinds of nights. And yeah, the beat is kind of very nocturnal, and obviously the saxophone and stuff. And yeah, I love that song. I think it definitely plays up how reckless I'm being. Like the idea of like, I've got Hades in the boot of my car. Like I've got the god of death and I'm fucking with him and I don't care. Like, and I'm just riding around having a laugh. You know what I mean? The idea is like, I'm doing the most consequential behavior. I'm flirting with death and I just don't care. You know what I mean? So that's almost, that's like an extension of my rap persona. I wouldn't necessarily say like that's really how I was living, but there were nights kind of, similar to that.
Mm-hmm. And how do you navigate being an Aussie rapper? I mean, using the accent, finding a style that's authentic to you, it's tough. We kind of touched on it a bit earlier.
Yeah, it's just about, I was talking to Jesse, who's a singer in a band from our high school, Rancid Eddie, and he was talking about how we as Aussie artists try too hard to take the American and UK styles and fit our own accents into it. And he was talking about how he really tries to talk his words and then find a way to sing them. You know what I mean? Almost like you got to walk before you learn how to run, or you got to crawl, whatever. So yeah, really it's just about writing things that I would actually talk and talking them authentically. You know what I mean? And not trying to sound too American or not trying to do things that they would necessarily do. And I think that really helps to build out the authenticity of the album, the fact that I'm not trying to copy anyone else. I'm just, I'm telling real stories that happen in Melbourne that me and my friends actually do. And to do that, what better way to talk it than just be natural, you know?
And Planet Laters as well. It seems like it's inspired by this sort of beachside holiday, if you like, that maybe gets a little bit out of hand.
Yeah, that's another real story. You're bang on as well. The funny thing about Planet Laters is the guy who I was talking about with Hades, I actually played him Hades when it was kind of in the works. And he said, "Dude, don't show this to me when we're on the smoke. You'll send me to Planet Laters." And I was like, "Planet Laters." I was like, because he always says that. He's just like, "Laters." Like, you just like hit a blunt laters. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going off somewhere. So yeah, he's like, "Send me to Planet Laters." And I just wrote that down. I think for a while, Zeitgeist was going to be called Planet Laters. I knew one of them had to be. Planet Laters was the last song I wrote. I wrote that in Sydney. And yeah, it was just like trying not to be too lyrical. Let's just be with the vibe. I love that beat. I was sitting on that beat forever, and I just didn't know how to approach it. So I thought, let's pitch down my voice, and that way we kind of feel like halfway through the album we've almost got like a different style to kind of break up the monotony. It actually turned out to be not monotonous at all, but I was just so worried about like, feeling like, because I know my voice gets very like kind of drony to some people sometimes, so I just wanted to have a song that's not in my voice to kind of break it up a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously Sam on the hook as well. But yeah, it's funny. This was one song that I actually deliberately tried to be not lyrical. Like, it wasn't even like, we'll just see what happens. It's like I actually wrote lyrical bits and I ended up scrapping them. I think I had one that's like, in Sydney, getting on my Coogee flow, sitting in the studio, thinking which mood to go. He passed the doobie to me like his name was Ricky Rubio.
Ricky Rubio's getting a shout out.
Yeah, in my own world, like the motherfucking Truman Show. Yeah, so I was like going all like punchliney, multi-syllabic rhyme scheme kind of thing. And then in the end, I was like, with the pitch down voice, I don't want people to listen that hard. You know what I mean? Like just now, like I had to talk it and you saw what I'm saying. But if you hear that in the pitch down vocal, like it's just like, I don't want, it defeats the purpose of the song for me to, be that lyrical. So it was just me just being almost just brainless and just going with the vibes,
Yeah, I mean, and talking AM as well, the next track here, number 8
Yep.
on the album. I mean, I can assume this album in the sort of chronological order and assume the narrative was being told in that manner. For me, I kind of thought it was foreshadowing things maybe getting a little bit more out of control.
100%.
Yeah.
And there are moments, like actually really organic moments in the sequencing that really do represent what's happening in my life. And AM, you could almost split in two halves, right? Like the first is very smooth, she called me in the AM, don't know what she's saying. And then it kind of flicks the switch halfway through and it's like, hey, I think we're running out of papers, waiter. And then that's just this distorted, like low-pitched voice like beneath me kind of rising, and the beat gets all very like scary and like overwhelming, and it's almost like the trip's taken a turn for the worst. And we're no longer in control of these drugs are in control of us. And yeah, so it's really I just like the idea in my writing, when going back to the whole writing process thing of like, I never want my songs to finish where they start. I always want a sense of momentum, like we're really going somewhere. I'm really attracted to the idea of escapism. So I really like the idea that you would start AM and listen to it, and I'm really taking you through what it's like when you're on the sesh and things get a little bit out of control. And I really want this sonics and just the lyrics and the style to embody that progression. So yeah, I'm glad you picked that out, because that's 100% what the song's going for. And it was if you think about how to bridge together Planet Laters to Passenger, I feel like AM is that perfect middle ground where it starts in this like warm, fluffy, psychedelic place, and then by the end it's almost getting sober and scary and like, no, wait, what are we doing here kind of thing. And then I think Planet Laters takes that baton and just runs with it all the way to Lost Bird in a way.
I mean, I really like the name of Passenger and like the track name. I mean, at the very start you talk about being inside a Commodore, like you're a passenger in a car.
Yes.
Is this a metaphor for where things are headed?
Yeah, so you're not too big on movies. Have you seen Taxi Driver?
I haven't.
So like the big horns and the drum thing at the start of Passenger,
Okay, I don't know it, but yeah, listeners may.
Well, at the start of Passenger, yeah, that's actually from Taxi Driver.
Slashed in the Commodore, levitating, exploring new corridors. Time dies, circling the block. Crackhead screams, reverberate and stop. Neon lights, advertisements on signs. Pixels flicker a minute and come alive. These are fossils of the working world. And as Big Brother sleeps, we inherit his earth. We tumbleweeds, drift in the wind by the scrunch receipts. Empty bottles of gin. Never looked up, but the story does ring. When I crawl through the city, lip blind with me. No drama, talk till I'm busy. Yeah, almost 350, blazed and confused as the AK hits me.
So right off the bat, the dichotomy of taxi driver, passenger. In like taxi driver, I feel like I'm a driver. Like I literally, my profession at the time was driving around the city and stuff, making observations and you know, being perceptive and like learning about the world that way. So in that sense, I could relate to taxi driver. But
can we just, I mean, I've did a little bit of courier work as well when I was in uni. Let's, like, seriously, man, when you drive around the city like 30 hours a week, you notice that many different people walking by, different occupations, and you're like, you just get this feeling for like the city.
Yes.
And it's only something you feel like you can like understand if you've done it.
100%.
Like, yeah.
So if you listen to Passenger again, that's really what that comes from, is just making observations about the city and the totality of all the different highs and the lows. I could like break down, especially that first verse. That's like Melbourne to a T. Like, do you have it up on the first verse of Passenger?
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry, just going back to the taxi driver, like kind of the play on that is that it's like taxi driver, except I'm a passenger in my own life and I'm not even in control. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And things are getting out of control, like in AM, like things are getting out of control.
Yeah.
Like what made me go to Sydney in the first place. And I'm just drifting through life and my hands aren't on the wheel. You know what I mean? You think about the confidence in like Zeitgeist and Hades. Like my hands are 100% on the wheel and I'm doing what the fuck I want. Mm-hmm. And then after a while I sober up and I'm like, no, wait, I was never in control. Like what are we really doing here? So like, yeah, I love that you picked out the Slouched and the Commodore being like a passenger levitating. So going back to exploring new corridors, the idea that I'm just like having new thoughts that I've never had before and it's opening up new neural pathways in my mind. You know what I mean? Time dies, circling the block, crack fiend screams, reverberate, then stop. That's actually something that happened on one of my runs as a courier, is I heard like this crackhead screaming like in an alleyway, like a block away or something, and then it just stopped, and I was like, well, that was fucking eerie. Like, what was that all about? Neon lights, advertisements on signs, pixels flicker a minute, then come alive. These are fossils of the working world. So the idea is like, these neon lights and advertisements, these are all products of this work, like this 9 to 5. It's almost like two classes of people inhabit the city, one at daytime and one comes out at nighttime. And when we come out at nighttime, and like you're around that when you drive around at nighttime and you see all the colorful characters walking around and see what they're up to, it's almost like they come into this world that's built by these 9 to 5 peoples and they just inhabit it. And for those nights, it's like they're the masters of that world. And so it says, as Big Brother sleeps, as, you know, the system basically sleeps, we inherit his earth, we tumbleweeds drift in the wind. So yeah, basically like we're all passengers, we're all just drifting through the wind. None of us have any autonomy, we're just kind of here to exist. So it's, yeah, I won't read out the whole thing, but the idea is basically like, I'm sobering up, I'm walking through the city and I'm just like, man, what the fuck is this? You know what I mean? Like, this is just like, yeah, like, what are we doing here? Yeah, I think that's kind of the main takeaway.
Speaking of sort of sobering up, I mean, Lost Bird, there's a 4-track run there from Planet Laters to Lost Bird. It seems to be like this sobering moment of realization that action needs to be taken, if you like.
Yeah, 100%. I think Passenger ends with this note of like, it's actually from Taxi Driver again. It says, go out, get laid, get drunk, you know, you could do anything. I mean, you got no choice anyway. We're all fucked. And then it goes from we're all fucked to basically childhood videos of like, okay, no, wait, we're fucked. But like, how did we get here? You know what I mean? And it's me really, again, taking a trip down my mind and my memories and trying to like reverse engineer my life to figure out how things, like, it sounds cliche, but where did it go wrong? I'm trying to think of a better way to say that. But at what point did it go from healing to, you know, dancing around the lounge room with my brother?
What moment did it change? Didn't necessarily go wrong, but what moment, is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, where things changed. Obviously, you become an adult and you've got independence that you don't necessarily know how to take. But no, mental health wise, I definitely feel like something had gone wrong. Obviously, you're never going to have that like pure euphoria that you had when you were a kid and you were learning the world for the first time and everything that comes along with that. But yeah, it was just kind of like, yeah, this can't be life. Like, there's got to be more to it. So yeah, Lost Bird was a very cathartic moment for me because it was just like, I just wanted to start writing about my childhood and like, let's go back to when I was happy. I was really happy when I was, a kid and, playing in my playroom, and I had that, how everyone had that road mat thing with the cartoon.
I don't know if that's Australian or just like a worldwide thing.
I don't know.
Everybody knows what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm glad they do, because that was like super nostalgic. And the idea of like when I thought adulthood was jazz music and slow dance, the idea is I had a really romanticized idea of what it meant to be an adult. And now that I am one, it's like, well, like, you know what I mean? I've got a girlfriend. I've got good friends. I've got what I thought I wanted. And it is good and it has great moments, but it's also like, it's not all the way it. Like, it's almost like just because I've got all those things doesn't mean there isn't this massive void missing. And that's kind of what I'm trying to get to the bottom of. And so, yeah, just talking about how I'm a lost bird searching for my nest. And I know that, like, I'm searching for that place that I last remember being happy at, you know what I mean? And I'm searching for something to give me that feeling. And in a lot of ways, if you look at AM and Hades and stuff, I'm probably searching in all the wrong places. So it's really, again, like cigarettes, I wrote the first verse and the second verse about a year apart. And it took me to go to Sydney to really understand myself enough to finish the song.
Yeah.
And I like to think that the first verse is me being lost emotionally and spiritually and actually not knowing which way is forward. And the second verse is actually me being lost by choice, physically. It's me going to Sydney where I know no one and I've got no idea why I'm going there. I'm actually getting lost physically and I'm actually choosing to become the lost bird in order to find myself. So like, one of my favorite lines in the second verse is, you ever flip a coin, not so it decides, but for that second in the air, you realize how you want it to land. Like the idea is, I'm going to Sydney. Me going to Sydney is this flip of the coin, where I actually don't know what I want or like what I want the coin to say. But like when I go to Sydney and put everything in my life up in the air, only then will I be able to figure out within myself what I really want. And so it just helped me gain so much more focus and clarity and work ethic for by the time I came back to Melbourne.
That's a great analogy. We all know that one. You can't make a decision, but the moment you throw the coin up in the air, there's something that comes to mind. No, I wanted that one.
Exactly.
It's, exactly. Great way of putting it.
100%. And it was also this thing of like, I came to the realization that whenever I've got to choose between A and B, the choice that scares me the most is not choosing at all. So just make a choice. Doesn't matter which one, because the worst choice you can make is no choice.
Indecision is not great.
Exactly right.
Action's always better.
Exactly right, because if you don't make a decision, you'll do what I did, and you just keep circling back every 2 years to the exact same place, and you realize that you're a stick in the mud, and nothing's changing. And so, yeah, me going to Sydney was like, fuck it, B. You know what I mean? Just pick one. You know what I mean? And in doing that, it was an incredible education.
So the album moves to Turning, track 12. Obviously, we have the Dull Skid at 11. I mean, it's a great reflective song. Talk me through that.
Yeah, so Turning, it's almost written sonically in the style of a breakup song. Obviously, you've got like the masculine and feminine kind of voices going back and forth and then coming to get together on the bridge. But actually, if you read the lyrics, it's a song about breaking up with yourself and the old version of yourself. And so I kind of came to this realization that the only way to improve as a person is to burn the last incarnation of yourself. And from that, the phoenix rises, and that phoenix is the new you. And that's actually a really painful process. It sounds romanticized, becoming the phoenix, but actually burning the last incarnation of yourself and throwing up your hands and saying, you know what, I was wrong. The way I was doing things was wrong, and actually rejecting past ideas and rejecting the entire identity that you built your life around, and being man enough or woman enough, you know what I mean, to say, you know what, that was wrong, and the only way to get better is, to do that. So, Turning is really about turning away from that old version of myself, and in doing so, becoming something greater.
If you didn't expect to make a career out of this necessarily, touch wood, I mean, you never know. But what was the major driving force to sort of make this album? And there's a lot of work that would have gone into many, many hours.
Oh, unbelievable amount of hours. What was the driving force? Good question. That was something... See, a lot of people kind of talked to me after it came out that they wanted to do something similar. And it's hard for me to describe because I can't describe the burning desire to make it. Like, you can't manufacture that. You know what I mean? Like, the idea that I'm not going to make any money from it, like all the work I'm doing is essentially going to be unrewarded in any tactile way. And it was just this, like, I can't even describe it. It was just like, I have all these existential thoughts about like, you know, what does it all mean? What's the point of anything? You know what I mean? And it almost felt like the only antidote to that was to articulately like portray all of my difficulties and actually portray my life in a body of work that I can share with people and I can take with me. And that in of itself almost felt like the antidote to the idea that, you know, life is meaningless. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, like, this album goes through all those depressing notes and then it comes out the other end and it's all happy. But the truth is it's not. The truth is, like, life is an ongoing struggle of, you know, between depression and euphoria, and you get better and you get worse again and you figure out what you're doing wrong. And you know, I'm 24 now. I'm going to go through all kinds of things in the future. I'm going to deal with grief, and I'm going to... So the work is never done. It's not like the answer is just, oh, I'm happy now.
Yeah.
So if it's this ongoing cycle of just good and bad until you die, what's the point? Well, for me, the point was actually to make something, make an album that encapsulated just a piece of it that I could always have and I could always take with me, and I could like just feel like I just got it out, and I actually like, you know what I mean? I actually like gave my struggle some kind of meaning and some kind of like, I don't know. Yeah, it's really hard to put words to, but just feeling like I'd actually made something out of all these feelings. Like, I think going back to your question, that was really the motivation to complete all of the work.
Does the second half of the album become a little bit more of a diary compared to the first half being an expression?
Interesting way to put it. Where would you... So from like Lost Bird or even Passenger kind of onwards?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, maybe. I would also say Corridors and Cigarettes probably have a bit of a diary element. Mm-hmm. I think I almost break it into thirds. I think the skits break the album up into thirds. The first one is, like I said, kind of just shooting my best shot. The second third is almost like this drug medley that ends with like just depression, basically, like sobering up and just like, well, that's not the way. And then the third, starting with Turning, is almost like this movement into enlightenment and this recognition of my pain and, you know, finding meaning in that pain. You know, I would say that's probably the best way to sum up the sequencing and the direction of the track list.
I mean, and the next song as well, All Roads Lead to Rome. I mean, one of the lyrics that I loved, and I know of these words, never make a t-shirt, everything will be fine. I mean, just speaking on the, you know, previous point of conversation being, you know, you don't expect to make a career out of it.
Yeah.
That sums it up pretty perfectly.
Yeah, 100%. I think, that idea, it was so crucial just to like sum up why I'm doing this, because yeah, you're right. That was me reckoning the work to myself. Like, why am I doing this? You know? And you're right. The words will never make a t-shirt. You know, I won't make money from it. It won't be this big thing, but I'll be fine. Like, I'm comfortable in my own shoes. Mm-hmm. Like, it's going to be all right. You know what I mean? And that's all I need to be, just comfortable in my own shoes, and everything else will fall into place. All
Roads Lead to Rome is a great name for a song. What does that mean?
Yeah, so I stumbled across the phrase last year, and I liked this idea of this duality of, how do I put it? So on one hand, all roads lead to Rome means that this civilization we're living in is not sustainable. Like in Western society, the way, you know what I mean? Like industrialization and, you know, corruption and all the things that are happening. Like, again, I'm not trying to be too overt with this because I don't want to make it like I'm a political commentator, because there's professionals who study that and do that. That's not my job. My job's to be an artist. But the meaning basically is all roads of our society lead to the same fate as ancient Rome. We're in the middle of a collapsing society and it's not sustainable. So again, what's the antidote to that? The antidote to that is go to your mind, and in your mind you can be wherever you want. All roads in my mind lead to Rome. Mm-hmm. Wherever I am, I could be on the most beautiful holiday as long as I'm at peace in my mind. So yeah, that duality, the two meanings of all roads lead to Rome. The idea of a crumbling society retreating into my mind, and my mind can be the road to wherever I want it to be.
To me, it listened like it was almost a cynical tone to the song, and a loss of innocence, which I feel like we've kind of been dancing about the last few songs, like we've been approaching this moment. Is that at all accurate to where the song's heading?
What do you mean loss of innocence?
Just in terms of, we've been sort of touching on maybe this, it's almost like growing up and discovering ourselves.
Yeah.
Throughout, especially the middle third, as you mentioned. We get to Lost Bird and we're kind of, sobering up, realising what's happening within ourselves.
Yeah.
Is it a loss of innocence, like, okay, this is life now?
Maybe. I think Lost Bird is really the loss of innocence. Turning is making sense of that. And then All Roads Lead to Rome, I feel like, is almost one step past what you're talking about. And it's the ascension. It's the acknowledgement of, I've lost my innocence, but I've got something better now. You know what I mean? And it's taking that something better with two hands and actually, you know what I mean? I love the way it, wondered in class about the sun and the stars, spend my night's head buried as I cuddle my arms, never looked up so I'd never fall down till I realized that I couldn't tunnel to Mars. Like, that's almost flashing back to that Lost Bird thing where, like that lost innocence as you're talking about, but it's the realization that I can never achieve what I want by looking down all the time. I can't reach Mars through a tunnel. Like, I need to fly to Mars. I need to look up. I need to ascend. You know what I mean? And then the end is basically the ascension. Like, come if you can into my land, enter my mind. Like, the album is the ascension. Like, the fact that I've made this album and I've articulated everything that I've ever felt. Like, you know what I mean? In a 35-minute piece of work. That to me is like, it's really hard to articulate. But I think the note, this for all intents and purposes could be the last song on the album. The way that it's saying, like, surrender yourself to the oneness, the spirits, the lives between lives, I know that I'm near it. It's almost like this is me winning the battle against my existential dread and saying, like, fuck, whatever happens from here, like, I did it.
I mean, the first verse as well, you sort of switch from speaking in first person to third person. Are you speaking about yourself or someone else there?
No, it's all about the self. Where's the...
Well, it breaks from...
Oh, you're saying
in
like...
my own shoes,
yeah,
a feeling,
right,
you're not prone to.
Yeah, right, okay. So that actually started with the... I was doing a postie run in Malvern and I was just seeing all these like really rich people and I was just like, that's like where the, you're posh, got a little dosh. Like that whole thing comes from. It's just like, I don't know, the way they were treating each other and a lot of... Like, obviously it seems judgmental, but like you kind of, you integrate yourself into that world when you do a postie run and you see so much of the world and the way people interact with each other and themselves and so you and all that. So yeah, that was basically, when I'm saying you, I'm talking to those kinds of people where it's like a feeling that you're not prone to and feeling like you're local and everybody knows you, but that's not true because you're not you. And that's what it comes down to. Are you or are you not you? Because if you're not you, you'll never be happy. And that was my realization that I had to become myself to become happy.
Crossword, the final song on the album. It's a great read. It's on Genius Lyrics as well. I recommend you give it a crack. That had me hanging on every word. Talk me through that because it's a handful. I feel like you need 5 listens to really kind of,
100%. Well, when we were talking off air, would you describe it as like a slam poem or something of that nature? I feel like yeah.
Okay. I mean, I don't know what a slam poem is, to be honest. So
really?
Enlighten me.
No, I think, sorry, my bad. I think Jake said that last night.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I think he felt similarly to you about the song. So remember when I was talking about the 10-day song challenge? This was song number 2. So this was me kind of trying to get my writing chops back, and I actually didn't know how to flow to the beat, so I didn't, you know what I mean? And I just didn't even bother trying to have a flow. And the song actually started originally with visions of foreign travelers gathering. So when I got to Sydney, I put those first 4 bars in about staring at the fan on the ceiling, asking myself, what am I feeling? Is it physical, spiritual, or mental? Nothing is coincidental anymore. I think nothing is coincidental anymore. That was literally written in a diary. I wrote that like 20 times in a row when I was in Sydney. Nothing is coincidental anymore. Nothing is coincidental anymore. Like, fuck, if someone read that, they'd probably think I was going crazy. But in hindsight, that was the clearest I'd ever felt in my mind. I was like, nothing is a coincidence. Like the fact that I went to Sydney and everyone that I was meeting had something to offer my struggle, where it was like some people had like perspectives that I just needed to hear about. Like, you know what I mean? There was a guy I worked with that just had like lived this crazy life, like really street life, and his brothers were in prison, and he was just like enlightening me to like that side of life. And then another person that I met, my landlord, was talking to me about like Chinese like medicines and Eastern spirituality and like the way that like the syncopation of the earth, in the way that everything is like perfectly engineered, like a grandfather clock and Phi's perfect ratio, and you know, Da Vinci and all that kind of stuff. Just like really like interesting conversation, just exposing me to all kinds of ideas. And so I made the decision in my diary, like none of this is coincidental. Everything that I'm hearing is for a reason. Like don't block anything out. And that was part of my healing process. So I put those first 4 bars in almost to contextualize the poem that comes after it. And then, yeah, visions of foreign travelers gathering. The idea is that we were talking about this before. The idea is like just looking at life in all of its totality and what are we really doing here? The fact that we're all moving about and telling each other our stories and sharing ideas and, you know, stories of life gained and life lost. Like we're the like 0.0000% of humans that have ever existed that are actually living at the moment. And it's almost like our job right now to tell the stories of everything that's come before us so those stories don't end. And in doing so, I'm kind of maybe... I don't know, a lot of this is subconscious, but I'm almost like trying to will into existence the prospect that people will talk about me and my work after I'm gone. You know what I mean? I think that's something that a lot of artists feel. But yeah, then tides came, the sun set and light stopped. So there heavy bodies sleep until man's flesh becomes compost. The rocks decay and earth emerges on top. So yeah, they just talk and share stories until basically the end of time. And Earth always emerges on top. That's how every story ends. If you take every story to its most furthermost point, Earth comes out on top, like as we saw today with fucking the volcano in Tonga. Like you know what I mean?
That was nuts. That satellite video was crazy.
Yeah, exactly right. Like we are at the mercy of this Earth that we inhabit, and like we're not in control at all. And we're just gonna, you know, we live and we have our culture and we have our ideas, but at the end of the day, like we're just gonna keep doing human shit. And Earth is going to take out on top at the end of the day. And so it makes you feel small. And in a way, it's a very psychedelic thought, isn't it?
Well, it's so real as well.
Yeah.
We have history to prove that.
Yeah, exactly. But it's really just the idea of, just the totality of life and just me. So yeah, as I go on, I feel so perverted as from a distance I watch. So I'm just like, this is basically me writing the album and I'm just watching the totality, or I'm having a meditation on the totality of life and the way it kind of moves and all of that. And then it goes into this kind of crossword stanza where I basically, it's very dream sequency. And I there's a man beside me and I'm basically asking him what's on his crossword. And his crossword says in one of the one of the answers, if this is all it is, what's next then? And it's basically like, it's like a dream sequence kind of thing. And he's a projection of my mind. And it's really me asking myself that question. You know what I mean? Like in a dream, all of the people you talk to, they're basically speaking your words back to you, right? Like you're not talking to anyone in your dreams, you're just talking to other versions of yourself. Or if you dream about me, you're just hearing me say what you think I would say to you. So in a way, it's me just asking myself the question, if this is all it is, what's next then? And it's a little bit of tongue in cheek. It's self-referential in the sense of like, everyone was always like, oh, what are you going to do after the album? You make another album? And it's just like, if this is all it is, what's next then? Like, fuck, you decide. You know what I mean? And if you really want to know what's next, just rewind the album. Just go to the first song. You know what I mean? Listen to it again.
Okay. So how did the meaning change over the course of its development? Speaking of going back to the start.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what, a 4-year process?
Yeah, 4-year process. So the first songs I was writing with Josie was obviously Shoreline, Hades, AM, Turning, and All Roads Lead to Rome. So back when it was just those 5 songs, I was going to make it just like an EP called Post Office, and it was all very innocent and lo-fi and chill, you know. and I sidelined that, did the film, came back. Then I did the 10-day song challenge, which gave me Corridors, Crossword, and Cigarettes and Setbacks, and Lost Bird. And then the last 3 I did were Passenger, Planet Laters, and Zeitgeist. So I say that to say the 3 different phases of writing the album were approached completely different, and each of them almost functioned as their own like album in a way. It's almost like a combination of 3 projects in one. So that first one is the Post Office, lo-fi, very vibey, hook focused. Then the second 10-day song challenge was very flow state, very, I guess it turned out to be more lyrical, but very like streams of consciousness. And then, the last ones were just like filling out the album with different sounds, Zeitgeist, Planet Laters, and I can't even remember the third one anymore. But so...
It'd be like that sometimes.
Yeah, it do be like that. So to answer your question, you said the meaning of the album. So originally there was no meaning. It was just like the songs, little songs that I wrote while working at the post office. You know what I mean? It was very innocent. The name of the album came about when I did this 10-day song challenge. Like I said, I was writing Lost Bird, and I had that, that epiphany moment where I thought of the album title. And then from there, I plugged the album title into songs like Passenger, like, Slouched in the Commodore, Exploring New Corridors, you know what I mean? And that's when it became more of a cohesive body of work that, I could then put those post office songs in, sequence it in a way that it all kind of felt like a narrative, like one big idea. So, it was a really organic and satisfying process, just putting these songs together and actually discovering that, when you put it in this order, it actually gives a meaning that it becomes more than a sum of its parts.
Yeah, I think it becomes so much richer having those different sort of periods blended together, like you say.
Yeah, for sure. Because it's, again, people like kind of want to do shit like this album, but the album wouldn't be the album if it didn't take 4 years. Because it can't. Like, I couldn't just sit down and make another one and do it in the next few months, because there's so much living in this album. There's so much life. There's so much experiences within this album that it's just like, you can't just do that. Like, you can't just make that. You've got to really have an album like in the works for 4 years and not put out any of your best songs for 4 years and just keep sidelining them. You know what I mean? If you listen to all the songs I made before this, most of them suck, because all of my best songs were devoted to this.
Mm-hmm. And what's the reception been like post the album? 4 years, like we spoke about. I mean, what's life been like now? It's been nearly a month, I believe. We're recording this mid-Jan.
Yeah, we would have liked to do it earlier, but like I said, COVID happened.
It's good to just sit for a few weeks. Though.
Yeah, 100%. It's giving me more to talk about. What's the reception been like? Well, personally, it's been really special just because I always want to take it here, because at the end of the day, it's really not about what other people say. You know what I mean? If they tell me, like back in high school, people used to, make fun of me rapping. And then a lot of those same people, came back when the album was done and they told me, oh, it's amazing. Like it's I never knew you had this in, you know what I mean? And it reminds me of this Dustin Martin interview where he's talking to Nick Rewalt, and Nick Rewalt says, Lee Matthews, one of the greatest football players of all time, says that you're the only player that he doesn't get offended when he gets compared to you. You know what I mean? You've got the highest praise from the greatest player of all time. How does that make you feel? And Dusty says one of the most gangster things I've heard. He's just like, well, that's just his opinion, mate. And it's just like the idea that no matter if people are saying amazing things that you always wanted to hear, or if people are saying the most like mean, cruel things that you wish you never heard, the idea is like, that's just your opinion. You know what I mean? So again, going back to the thing, people made fun of me for rapping in the early days. That's just your opinion, I don't even use it as fuel. Like a lot of people are like, oh, I needed that hate to fuel my, you know what I mean? I don't rap like that. Like it doesn't fuel me. It doesn't demotivate me. Like it does nothing to me. You know what I mean? And so it's been really pleasant hearing all the nice things people have said since the album's come out. Like it's, some of the reactions has been fucking insane, to be honest. Like having people say like the things I always fantasized about, like it's crazy, but at the same time, it's just your opinion, And I know what it is. Like I know what I think the album is. And at the end of the day, like, that's all that matters. And that's really what the album is about. The idea that I've got this cerebral fortress in my mind, and no one can penetrate that without my consent. No one can plug ideas into my mind without me first deciding if it's something I want in my mind. So, yeah. That was the reception on the personal level. It's just been super satisfying. Also, like, the curse of being a creative. I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but the idea that you make the thing that you always wanted to be in existence, but once you've made it, you don't care about it because, like, you're the one who made it. You know what I mean? It's not special or mysterious or cool to you because you know all the tricks that went into it.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, like, a lot of people are like, oh, you must be so proud, but it's almost like I can't be proud because I did it. It's almost like I don't have any. Yeah, I don't have the same relationship with the album that everyone else would have because they're discovering it, but I created it. But then again, when it's finished and it's all put together, there are these little moments where I feel like I discover something new about it, and those are the most satisfying things.
The break through the glass moments.
Bar none, man. Like when I realized, oh wow, I never noticed that this song leading into this song actually has this effect.
Mm-hmm.
Like, me discovering that, and that. Yeah, discovering my own work, like, that is the most that the album could ever give back to me.
You must have played around with sequencing so many different ways.
I actually didn't.
Really?
Nah, I didn't. I had the sequencing done before a lot of the songs had even been finished being written, which sucks because I love the idea of album sequencing, and I always like the idea of just recording 50 songs and then, you know what I mean, having my whiteboard and figuring out where things go. But I don't make music like that. The truth is, I will give up on a song if it's not good within the first quarter of making it. So all the songs I actually finished, I know are great.
Is it like reading a book? Like, a lot of people, when they read books, right, they feel like they have to finish it. And if they don't finish it, they won't pick up a book for 6 months. But the best way of reading books, I think I heard this from Naval Ravikant. He's great. He's a great, if you haven't heard him, Google him. But he says, if you don't like a book, put it down. It's not doing anything for you. Move on. Find something else that is doing something for you. There's no reason to hang on it. Is it like that with a song, writing a song?
Yeah, 100%. The songs that didn't make the album, like, didn't even make it to, like 20% of the way done. Like, it's crazy. Like, I know straight away when to jump off the ship.
Mm-hmm.
And then something like Zeitgeist, when I literally rap fucking 3 lines and then I'm going to my mum saying, hey, this is going to be on an ad one day. You know what I mean? Like, knowing right off the bat, like, yeah, I've got one. Like, this is, like, I'm going to finish this and it's going to make the album and it's going to be one of my best songs.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I almost wanted the album to be treated like a greatest hits album. Like, there's not a song that's going to make it unless I think it's perfect. You know what I mean? I'm trying to think of the root point. What were we how do we get onto this?
Man, I forget sometimes. That's when you know it's a good conversation.
Yeah. But
it was the putting down a book and putting down a song, sequencing.
Sequencing,
yes.
Yeah. The idea is that there was no moment where I was like a puzzle piece of like, oh, this goes here. This, like, as soon as I start writing a song, I've got a pretty good idea of like, oh yeah, it needs to be here. Like Lost Bird, for instance. There's not a lot of flexibility of where you put that. It like goes where it goes, and that's about it. There's a mix of narrative when considering sequencing, i.e. this needs to lead into this because this happens after this and then this happens. There's a bit of canon to it. But there's also like this engineered thing, like studying my favorite albums. Like Turning is 3/4 of the way through because, it was, I Am by Nas. He put Nas is like his best song 3/4 of the way through. And that's super important. When you know you've got a good song, it's important to put one 3/4 of the way through to keep people engaged going into the ending. But then apart from that 3/4 song, just top end the fuck out of it. That was kind of my thinking.
Man, you're making me want to listen to Nas now.
Yeah.
What do you hope? I mean, sorry to go off on a little tangent, but what do you hope people will take away from the album? And do I dare ask the artist what the overall message is when it's often so ambiguous?
Oh, man. Message, you choose. Everyone, you could choose for yourself. What was the question? What do I hope people take from it?
Yeah, what do you hope people take away from it?
I hope, whatever I say, people are going to pigeonhole the entire purpose of the album into this one thing. One thing I hope people take from it is a new way to have a conversation about mental health.
Mm-hmm.
not everyone can communicate in this way. Like not everyone kind of wants to communicate in this way. But if you do, like, I just feel like this whole "Are you okay" day thing, it can be more than just like, I feel sad today. Why do you feel sad? I had a bad day at work. You know, we need to start treating this on a more like dimensional plane. I don't know, but again, that's not for everyone. And
the dimensions being,
mental health is an incredibly nuanced and complicated conversation, right? And I talk about it in a way of, all right, let's reverse engineer the brain and let's treat it like a three-dimensional construct.
Okay.
And in doing that, we can really help diagnose what's happening in these corridors, what's happening in this space that you can actually visualize. And in doing that, you can go down the corridor of your childhood and come to the realizations that I was having on Lost Bird, or whatever your thing is, if it's a drug addiction, if it's, you know, you've gone through a bad breakup, if it's, you know, you were abused as a child, or whatever it may be, like envisioning your problems existing in this three-dimensional construct. And yeah, I don't know how personal this is to me, like in terms of, is this just something that only works for me, or is this so? But again, I guess this is why we're here. This is what worked for me, is just, yeah, envisioning your problem as something that exists in this three-dimensional construct, and it just helps you visualize it, and it helps you put it into perspective and like realize that you are not your problems, and your problems exist somewhere in your brain. And there was some time where things were right, and sometimes was some time where things became wrong, and it's kind of your job to, yeah, diagnose within yourself what that point was and why it happened, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that's one of the things. But also, just more broadly speaking, like, just like, when you're making an album, listen to more fucking genres. Like, don't pigeonhole yourself into, oh, I'm an Aussie rapper, so I'm going to listen to 360 and Cursor and come out with the greatest thing ever. Like, you probably won't, because those guys didn't just listen to Aussie rap. Those guys all, like, 360 said one of his favorite artists is Hans Zimmer, you know? Like, so there you go. Don't listen. You're doing yourself a disservice. Don't do it. Listen to everything. Try and, even if you don't like, for instance, country music or house music, people do. People like that, and there's a reason why people like that. So it's your job as an artist to figure out why they like it, and yeah, and until you do that, you're not reaching your full potential as an artist. I understand, like, dude, DJing with you guys and getting into house music, that was a massive education for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
we do enjoy DJing as a collective. It's good fun, man.
Yeah, we do. We get around it, and it's good. And I think it's good for people that are less like kind of akin to creativity to still find enjoyment in the musical process.
Yeah, totally.
You know what I mean? Like, not everyone's going to make an album, but at least you can do a DJ set and actually find a way to express yourself. Like, hey, this is a plethora of songs that I enjoy, and now I'm sharing it with you, and you're moving your body to it, and there's vibrations going around, and house music, it's very like kind of this kinetic energy that when you're on the dance floor, you know what I mean? The songs are a consistent BPM, and they all sound similar enough to where you all, like, as soon as a new song comes on, you already know how to dance to it.
Yeah.
And there's something beautiful about that. Now, my album, you're not going to fucking dance to it. Maybe Zeitgeist, but apart from that, like, it doesn't do that. But, like, just understanding how the music moves people in different ways, like, that was all an education.
Man, I feel like there's so many different forays into creativity. You know, DJing is a small one. This is a 4-year process, this whole album. Dude, it's been fucking great talking about it with you.
Oh, 100%. It's been therapeutic for me, because I'm sick of beating my girlfriend over the ear with all these ideas and all these, like, nah, you don't get it. This thing means that. Like, it's good to just get it out there. And yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for having the chat. It's been amazing. Check it out, guys. It is out there on YouTube, of course. Floral Wallpaper in the Corridors of My Mind. Austin Cleary on YouTube as well. Thank you so much for joining.
All these memories I collected, dreams respected. I wait to myself just to see them manifested. Pain, time, effort, Energy invested, tell me who your best is. See if I went bested, see why I'm obsessed with this shit. Flashback, floral fucking wallpaper. Said it was my last one, felt the call of stardom. Realized I was half done, tell me I'm alright. Baby, this ain't bar one. Greatest album coming out of Melbourne, homie, bar none. Yeah, ayy, psycho, nice whenever I flow. Feeling like I might blow, missiles in the silo. Getting too high, man, I think I need a lifeboat. On and off, hot and cold, never ending high lows.
Yeah, wait.
I lived 4 years worth of dreams in a day. All my fantasies, man, that shit is insane. But everything I made didn't change me getting older. Shooting for the stars only left me growing colder. Existential thoughts running loose in my brain. But if my album is my meaning, then I hope that's contained, yeah. But I'll never change, so don't go so deep. Keep it up like them, be a little bit you and enough like them. After all, just admit it, man, you just want friends. Build relationships with people, wanna trust like them. I wanna love like them, be someone's crush like them. Just do normal shit, have a heart like them. If I don't, all these friendships just might end. Think I did it all wrong, can I grow up again?